feel like earlier I kind of mentioned this, but there's a little bit of a gap between the two groups right now. Like we're kind of all clumped and then the club's all clumped. So I'm just gonna act as the bridge right now. When I first turned 18, I did register as a libertarian. That has since changed, but I just want you guys to know that the movement is growing. There's us, and not just the old white men in Utah smoking pot, right? So we're in a good place right now, guys. So registering as libertarian, it was my first rebellious act as a legal adult. I had really strict parents, right? Did anybody else have strict parents? Yeah, I feel it, right? So basically, strict parents, there's nothing that makes you believe in the doctrine of free will more so than that, right? So my parents were so strict. This is not a lie, and it is not a brag, but the last time I got in trouble, I was 9 years old. And I was broken after that. I could not get in trouble again because of how scary and how mean my parents were when I was 9 years old and got in trouble. So this is the story, right? My brother, he's 2 years younger than me. He is my best friend in the whole world now, and he was my mortal enemy until he was 16. And so we were in the car, I'm 9, he's 7, and we start fighting. And it wasn't like a physical fight because we weren't allowed to hit each other. We were just bickering, just back and forth, and it was annoying. And my mom calls it quits, right? She's like, you guys are done, and you're in trouble for fighting. But she was like, trying to like be the progressive parent, right? Like, you get to choose your own punishment. You're in trouble, but choose what you see fit. And so what do you do in this situation, right? Because you don't want a super long, drawn out punishment, you know, but you need to make it fair. You need to get your parents on board. So you choose high cost, but quick execution. My brother and I, very sugar motivated people, we say no dessert tonight, right? That is our punishment. We were fighting, no dessert tonight. And my mom shakes on it, she's agreed. No dessert, and then we're good to go, we're free. And what we forget is that night, we're going to our friend's house. And one of them is a Girl Scout, and it's Girl Scout cookie season. So we are regretting our choice, right? And so, you know, on top of that, it's usually like one cookie because we're small and sugar just gets you like super jacked up. And so our parents decide it's a special occasion, we're all together. No, you don't get just one cookie. All the kids, you guys get 2 cookies. And my brother and I are devastated. This is the worst thing that could happen to us. And so it's after dinner, we're all playing in the toy room, and then like the parents call down the hall, right? And my brother and I kind of like look at each other and like nod and just like the solidarity. And our friends leave and we don't say anything. We are embarrassed. We don't want them to know that we don't want to draw attention. So we stay in there and we're focusing on the toys and we're definitely not thinking about the cookies. And we stay strong. We don't go down the hall. We don't beg for mercy. And we finally think that it's over, right? Today's dessert has ended, and tomorrow is another day of dessert. So we're in the clear. And everyone's down and getting the cookies, and then we hear some footsteps. And we're like, okay, our friends are gonna come back and play, and like things are gonna be happy again. And so our friends, they kind of just gather in the doorway, and they don't come in and play with us, and they're just kind of watching us, and they smile, and crumbs like fall from their face. And you know, the leader of our group, he's just kind of standing there with his hand behind his back. And he looks and he pulls out his 3rd cookie. And my brother and I are like, what the fuck? And he bites into it, makes eye contact with both of us and goes, this cookie is the best cookie I've ever had in my entire life. Wouldn't you guys like a cookie right now? And then it was just kind of chaos. The rest kind of start in. They're parading around us. All of them have a 3rd cookie, right? And they just chomp and crumbs, and my brother and I are kind of like, is the particle worth it, right? Can you just licking the floor? And they just kind of circled around us, and they're looking down at us, and the cookies are done now. And they go, yeah, your parents told us that we could have a 3rd cookie if we came in here and ate it in front of you. So, not only was the punishment really wasn't no dessert, right? The punishment for a 7 and 9-year-old was public humiliation and mockery. And not only that, but my parents paid elementary schoolers to do their dirty work, right? That was it. That was the last time. I was never in trouble again because I was gonna end up in a bad place after that. So, anyways, it's interesting, right? There's so many adults that you come across growing up, right? My parents, you can have sociopathic punishers, and then just like other characters. And so I met my favorite adult interacting with children persona last summer at freshman orientation. And it was the portion of the day where it was like the don't do drugs talk, right? And so we all get in the auditorium and we're sitting there and we're looking at the projector, and it's all the consequences of what happens if you get caught using illegal substances underage, right? And we're just kind of sitting there and there's nothing really to do. You don't know anybody. Some people are talking, but you just kind of are like reading, right? And then Susan comes out, right? And she's like, hey guys, how's it going? She's like, are you ready for college? Now, I know you're not here for the exams. It's the parties. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about alcohol. And this is her persona, right? She is the adult who's trying to be cooler than you and get you to confide in her, right? Like tell her how you're breaking all the rules and she'll act like she's broken them too. And so, Susan recognizes she's fighting an uphill battle, right? We're a bunch of not even college freshmen yet, and she's like, let's talk about alcohol. And so she just starts kind of pointing people out, like, you like alcohol, don't you? And no one wants to fess up, right? Because this is just a weird situation. And so she's like, look guys, I'm cool. Which she's not, because she has to say it out loud. Right? And also, mind you, the projector is still on behind her, so we know where this is going. In 15 minutes, we are going to be shut down, so no one wants to open her mouth, right? And she's like, look, I'm cool. I remember what it's like. Alcohol is fun. Alcohol is sexy. Let's just throw out examples of why somebody would even want to drink alcohol. And immediately, right off the bat, this kid, he takes it as just like, now he's open. Like, now he's ready to just share everything. He's like, stress relief. She's like, yeah, college is stressful. College is hard. It's taking the edge off, right? And then, she's like, what else? What other examples? And it's all like giggles and quiet. And someone's like, to get drunk. And she's like, yeah, it's fun getting drunk. What else? And then someone else, or the same dude, he's like, stress relief. And you're like, pretty sure he was stressed already before coming here, right? And so she's kind of like feeling it out and just recognizes this isn't going to change anything. So she just changes the rules of the game. She's like, look, you're in college. It's not just alcohol you're going to come across, right? You are going to come across all these different substances. And because we're not talking, she knows she's lost us. There was a critical period of like getting the children to talk about illegal activities, and she has lost it. But she's like scrambling. She's just trying to get it back, right? So she's just like starts name dropping drugs that she knows about, right? So she's like, let's talk about shrooms. Yeah. Maybe some pills. How about cocaine? Do you guys want to hear about the time I did cocaine? And of course not, Susan. Like, I do know. Like, I just feel like I should put it out there. Like, it is important to talk about, and you can get in trouble. And this isn't like a lecture, but like, you can get in trouble. There's so many other things to talk about other than shrooms and pills and cocaine, right? And they do a good job. I live in the dorms, and there's these posters on the walls. And they are conversations. You've probably seen them if you live in the dorms, or you've been in the dorms at all. They're conversations about consent, right? Showing examples of what is or is not giving consent. And at first, I thought these were just normal verbal conversations between two people. And then I saw the smiley face emoticon that you only send to someone in the first 1 to 4 weeks of having their number, and then never again. So these are conversations that are happening over text. People are texting people for consent, right? Now, there was a decision-making process behind putting these posters up to discuss the critical conversation of consent, right? So what was the brainstorming room? Who was in there? Like, oh my God, the teenagers, they keep raping each other. What do we do? How do we reach the youth? And someone was like, they really like their phones. That's the one and only thing they can relate to ever. We have to have conversations happen in text for them to ever understand consent. Otherwise, the rapes will never stop. Which I will say, I do have a phone, and I do use that to text. So I can totally relate to that. What I can't relate to is the idea of like hanging out with a guy, things getting kind of hot and heavy, and then stopping to text him for consent, right? Because what if his ringer's off and he doesn't hear it? UNR has the worst reception I've ever experienced, so the message isn't even received, right? There's so many ways this can go wrong. So I think if there's going to be posters about texting people for consent, there needs to be a follow-up set of posters of like troubleshooting what to do when technology fails you, right? Now, speaking of technology failing you, I was airdropped a dick pic in the cafeteria the other day. Yeah, I see your face. That's what my face was too. It was shocking.
Well, this is excitement.
Oh, okay, never mind.
You were noticed.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm looking at my phone and then that pops up. And it was my first time ever receiving a dick pic, believe it or not, which was an experience. And I don't have one for reference. And that was my first dick pic received. But they did it wrong. And I know that they did it wrong because it reminded me of Bert from Sesame Street. And it was just a childhood ruiner, right? Now, airdropping dick pics has a much longer and deeper history than most people would like to assume. We're looking all the way back to the year of 1949. So, just for a little context, is the beginning of the Cold War, right? It's the Allies versus the Communists, and Soviet Union and America hate each other and all this. And Berlin is divided east and west. And in 1948, there is the Berlin blockade, right? The Soviets blockaded West Berlin. They were starving, and the Allies did the Berlin airlift of 1948, where they airlifted in food and fuel and supplies and saved the West Berlinians. Now, that's pretty well known. I read about it in textbooks. What I've never heard of until recently was what Stalin did in response to the Berlin airlift. And this happened in 1849. Because on this fateful day, the West Berlinians, they look up at the sky, they see airplanes just flying over, and they get excited, thinking it's the Allies bringing more food and more fuel, and it's going to be a good day again. And the planes just drop their goods, right? But the goods are individual shots. And all of these are original print, unique, not a single identical picture in them, of Stalin's Commonwealth. And so, airdropping dick pics goes back just so far. And so this is my last bit, but I'd like to end kind of just with a PSA that there is a history there, and we shouldn't necessarily stop airdropping unsolicited dick pics. But I do think we should return to the good old-fashioned, plain delivered dick pics and leave technology behind. And Megan Ballardini, thank you so much. Yeah!